Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Ghost Warrior 38, and I'm back with another pulp character video. Today, we are going to be talking about the Man of Bronze himself, Doc Savage, and his appearances in the DC Comics. I'm going to be highlighting two particular runs: the series from 1987 and then 1988. Some of the 88 series I have in front of me, others of which I do not have access to yet, but I have read some online and can at least spotlight or highlight some significant arcs during those times. And I'll get to the Shadow story here in a moment. But from the top here till about the middle of the pile are the rest of what was in that set in my earlier comics video. So pushing these a little bit to the back so I can actually show you. I have some random issues that I have picked up through my local comic shop, but also either flea markets or comic book conventions. So I still have a ways to go to completing the first run. The 1987 run was a 4-issue miniseries that was written by Dennis O'Neil, and then the 88 series spun out of that series, and a lot of what happened during that 4-issue miniseries takes place or carries over into the 88 series. After Dennis O'Neil wrote the first couple of issues, it was actually a 6-part miniseries, The Discord Makers, issues 1 through 6, which I do have here. The series was then handed over to Mike W Barr. Now, I can't speak for the man's writing quality, but he does introduce a couple arcs from the pulps and characters, most notably in the later issues in the run. I want to say that's around issues 11, 12, 13, and 14. I believe that's either a 3 or 4 issue arc that reintroduces Doc Savage's arch nemesis. You can think of him as his Shiwan Connor Moriarty, John Sunlight, which is in the first issue, or the first volume of the Sanctum reprints, is John's two John Sunlight stories. That is the James Bama cover, of course. I don't have the pulp cover on hand. But anyway, back to the comics. On a side of a quick note, issues 17 and 18 of the 1988 Doc Savage series crossed over with issues 5 and 6 of the Shadow Strikes. I always had mispronounced this series for a while because I don't know exactly how they spell it, but the story arc is called The Conflagration Man, unless it's supposed to be pronounced differently. Gerard Jones, Mike W Barr, Wingham, and William Barretto. But anyway, here's issue 1, The Discord Makers. And this one is issue 3, or part 3. This one is part 4. Actually, I'm just going to move these off to the side and show these off one at a time. This one is part 5. And then the next one here is part 6. I have a couple issues after that, but these are in no particular order. And then ahead a few issues later, the next part here I'm showing, this is Mike W Barr's run. This is issues 9 and 10, The Golden God. This two-parter reintroduces Doc Savage's wife. Her name is Maya, and that's according to the pulps, but per Denny O'Neil's 1987 run, her name was changed, but Mike W Barr basically merges the two characters into one. So it's Manya, and then the last name of how she was pronounced in the 87 series. But for all intents and purposes, it's the same woman. And then this is issue 19, and it starts with 19, 20, and 21. It returns to the 1930s, 1940s for a crossover, for a story set during that period. It's called The Air Lord. I have not read this series yet, so I can't speak for the story, but I do look forward to reading it. Yeah, because here's 21, part 3. I do have issue 20, but it's not in order. And then the last couple issues, 22, 23, and then 24, but again, it's not in order, kind of go into a backstory about Doc Savage's parents and how they met, as well as an adventure with Doc himself. There was actually a 25th issue, and that was the annual. With another story in there. And the rest of it is just the ones I picked up from here. I'm going to put these sort of together at the end of the video. Issue 2, issue 17, which is part 2 of the Shadow crossover, issue 18, and then issue 20, which is the Air Lord part 2 story of the story, and then the last issue of the finale, issue 24. And then as I showed off hand, the 87 series, issue 1, issue 2 here. Basically, Doc is presumed dead after an experiment at the end of issue 1, and issue 1 also sees the birth of his and Maya's, I'm going to just refer to her as Maya, his and Maya's son. And then there's a time skip later, this second issue that's supposed to be Doc Savage's grandson, so we never actually get to see anything with Doc Savage's son. This is his grandson, Chip, and he does reappear in the first issue, and he does play a role throughout the rest of the series. And then this is issue 3. This is the one of Doc Savage's agents. He's older now. And then issue 4. 87, and then this series sort of like reintroduced Doc Savage, sort of similar to how the Shadow Blood and Judgment brought the Shadow back. I've heard the comparison made between, especially with Shadow Blood Judgment, think like it's his Dark Knight Returns story. A hero from a bygone era comes back to a modern time in his city, that the world has moved on and changed around him, except the difference is in the Shadow Blood and Judgment, someone is killing off his old agents, and the Shadow basically has to come back and solve why, and along the way revelations are made about his past and an old enemy from his previous life. And the first issues I did at the beginning of the video, those are what was in the bigger package that was at the previous video, and also this one as well, the Shadow Strikes annual. And that's just the end of the video. Doc Savage also had some issues published in Dynamite too. There was a mini series there. There was also a Doc Savage special that was dedicated to his cousin Pat, or Patricia Savage, Woman of Bronze, which also felt like it was a similar story that was done in the Millennium comics, The Woman of Bronze. I haven't read that one, but I've seen a few snippets of the Woman of Bronze Dynamite Doc Savage special online. Read a few snippets of that book. And that's really just kind of about it. This was my look at the Doc Savage series. I still have a long way to go from completing the rest of my series. But as I update and get the rest of it, I will make a follow-up video. So I hope you guys liked this little look. And until then, let me know your favorite Doc Savage story. Comment in the description below on this video. And I will see you all again next time with another video. So until then, goodbye for now.